Welcome to Get to the Root, the podcast that's redefining what health benefits should be. I'm your host, Dr. Erica Armstrong, founder and CEO of Root. Here we explore the category we've created, root cause health benefits, a smarter approach that uses advanced lab screening and functional medicine to reverse chronic conditions and lower healthcare costs. Each week, we sit down with forward-thinking employers, innovative brokers, and change makers who are transforming healthcare from the inside out. If you're ready to move beyond sick care and build a healthier future, you're in the right place. Let's get to the root. Today, I'm joined by Spencer Smith, the host of Self-Funded with Spencer, a podcast that's become a go-to resource for anyone navigating the world of self-funded benefits. Spencer is also the Senior Vice President of Sales at Pareto Health, where he helps employers rethink how they finance and design their health plans. In this conversation, we'll talk about why more companies are moving towards self-funding, the trends Spencer is seeing across the industry, and what lessons he's learned from interviewing some of the most innovative voices in benefits. Spencer, welcome to the show.
Most innovative voices, including yours. I'm interviewing you as well, but thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much. We were just chatting about being on your podcast and the impact that you've had for Root, and really appreciate you joining this show today.
Yeah.
Spencer, what first got you interested in the self-funded space?
Well, if you take a step back to answer your question, Erica, I've been in the world of insurance 17 years now, maybe 18 years, but I didn't get introduced to self-funding until about 10 or so years ago. And I don't know if you've had light bulb moments in your career where you finally found the thing that actually piqued your interest. I was going through the motions before that. And then when I discovered what was possible with self-insurance, I just went a deep dive down the rabbit hole with it and go, this resonates with me and this is what I want to do. And now looking back in hindsight, I've been fortunate to make a career out of it and be known for it. But I still love it. And I love what I do because sometimes it can be seen as like super complex. And I love to try to simplify the complex so people can understand it.
It's definitely apparent that you enjoy what you do, and your podcast shows it as well. I like that how you explain that breaking down complex issues into simple steps. That's exactly what we try to do at Root too, and figure out root causes and then guiding people along the way. But back to your podcast, what inspired you to start the show?
It was actually an offshoot from some whiteboard videos I did during COVID. The height of COVID, we were all locked down and I didn't have the ability as a salesperson to get in front of people. I started to see how other people were leveraging creating of content, especially educational content, and using that as a way to get eyeballs and ears looking at what they do and becoming a subject matter expert. So I did that with something called stop loss insurance first, which I don't think we'll take a super deep dive into right now. And then once I did about 25 of those videos that kind of became popular and people would watch them, I realized I didn't have any more I could necessarily give in that category. I exhausted my knowledge. So a podcast became a natural offshoot, just like you're doing here, where you can invite other people on and let them be the subject matter expert for an hour or however long it may be. And you just get to listen and learn alongside the audience as well. And that effectively gave me an infinite number of people I could potentially have on over years and years and never get bored doing it.
Yes. What themes or issues do you hear coming up most from your guests?
Well, right now, the most painful thing that everybody's talking about in the health insurance market is a rising cost. I just read a Wall Street Journal article that said, this is the worst health insurance market in 15 years. And I think everybody's starting to recognize that. So what you're seeing is a through line on the episodes is people demanding better out of what they give for health insurance or their health plan. And I think you have employees that are frustrated that it keeps going up in cost and nobody can tell them why. And yet at the same time, their benefits are getting worse as well. And so I feel like we're at a precipice. Maybe it's been like that for a couple of years where there's a real impetus to have a better version of a healthcare system in the United States. And I think for employers, self-insurance is the mechanism, the means to create that better plan.
Any surprising insights that you've learned from interviewing so many leaders in this space?
I think the most surprising insight for me is the more I sit down with amazingly intelligent people in their niche, I realize I don't know anything. It's so funny. You think you've got a grasp on it, and then you get introduced to another corner of this healthcare system that we've created, and you realize, man, I know nothing about that. How is it possible I've gone this long? And so it's refreshing in some regard in that I have the ability to never stop learning, but it could be frustrating sometimes as well that you realize you never can stop learning or you'll get left behind in the industry as well.
Well, I certainly don't think you know nothing, but that beginner's mindset is so important to be able to continue to innovate and grow and create change in your field?
I think you have to be, as somebody told me, one of the best compliments I ever got was that I'm just infinitely curious. It's always like this passionate pursuit of what is true and what is effective and what works. And that it also sometimes leads you to let go of firmly held beliefs you might have had before because new information was presented to you. And I'm not so steadfast in my belief on everything that I'm not willing to change my mind. And I think just all that wrapped into one just means, hey, if I can continue to do this for 10, 20 more years, I'll still keep learning the entire time as well.
So what have you learned about innovative solutions like captives or direct contracting that are changing the landscape?
Yeah, I think self-insurance is something that's been around for 30 plus years. So it's not necessarily new. You mentioned captives, and selfishly, I'll say the captives, I work for one and the biggest one. And I've been very surprised at the pace of growth of interest in the captive space. I think it solves for a lot of the problems that small employers typically have when it comes to self-funding. A captive solves for those things. And so that's been really fascinating to watch. And then I think it's just innovation like Root, like what you're doing, trying to bring that into the employer space. It seems obvious to me, but generally there's just a massive influx of interest in dollars and people trying to innovate our way out of a broken model that we have right now.
Or building one from scratch.
Or building a better, I'm much more interested in trying to build the better adjacent model and bringing people over to it because it's better.
Yes. What advice would you give to HR leaders or CFOs who are hesitant about making the leap to self-funding?
Yeah, first I'll acknowledge I get it, their concerns, and we field those concerns every single day, and we often speak with business owners. So we get to write to the people that are tasked with making this decision, and I will tell you their concerns are warranted. And then it's just a matter of like pulling them back and saying, let's actually talk about this. Let's talk about this openly and honestly. What level of work would be required? What level of change management and behavior we need to go through. But then when you show them the scale of what we do and that the overwhelming majority of large employers have self-funded and have been self-funded forever, they start to realize, hey, this isn't some fad, or this isn't something that we're going to be the guinea pig doing. And then we can just methodically walk them through what the steps are to get there. And if they really want to do it, and they really want to lean in over maybe, let's call it a 3 to 5 year time horizon versus one knee-jerk reaction to a bad renewal, those are the type of people we're screening for mindset. So whether you're dealing with HR, Erica, whether you're dealing with finance person or the CEO, his or herself, they all have slightly different concerns, but at the end of the day, they care about their people and they care about giving what's best for their people over a long period of time.
Absolutely. That was a very great way to describe it. And starting with screening for mindset,
Yes.
And thinking of this as a long-term stepwise solution. I've also been surprised to learn the large percentage of companies that are actually self-funded, and I never knew that before. Getting into this,
93% of large employers, yeah.
Wow, 93% of large employers. That's even more so than I was aware of.
Well, and the crazy thing too is like, okay, let's say it's not for them this year or they hit pause. I think we're at a point where people realize that there is a cost to doing nothing. In Texas, where I live in the small market, average increase in the insurance space for health insurance space is 33% from the insurance carriers. How long can you sustain doing nothing and accepting those type of increases before they reach their breaking point? So if it's not this year, I don't like to sell through fear, but we know what's on the horizon based on the trajectory. And those businesses that continue to delay, they're going to find themselves in a really bad spot, most likely, if they don't do something now.
Yes, there's so many proactive things that they could do. And in the meantime, for example, just trying to get an idea of the health concerns of their people that they might not be aware of through things like the extensive biometric lab screening that we do, and how many people are at risk of being high-cost claimants could be an important step along that journey.
Sure.
How else, and now that you know a bit about Root after our wonderful podcast, how do you see solutions like Root, which is a tech-enabled functional medicine solution for employers, helping or fitting in and even on reducing some of these costs?
Well, I think what you're seeing generally is that there's a large level of interest today in what is causing the problems that we see systemically from a health perspective in the United States, whether that's the obesity concerns, diabetes, chronic disease, cancer. One of the things that I reached out to you to invite you on months and months ago is because I go, hey, I'm a firm believer in that we can distill these down to a root cause of what's driving it. And we've been so laser focused in healthcare on treating acute symptoms after they materialize, rather than starting and looking for them, whether it's early in the onset of a disease Or could we prevent that disease from progressing altogether? I think I shared with you, I have an exercise health or exercise science background from college, but I've been curious about health and nutrition and exercise for the better part of 3 decades of my life. And so I say, how do we apply that through the group health employer space to get to the 150 million people in the United States that are privately insured in some way through their employer and help make them healthier through the employer channel? And that's one of the things that I loved about what you're doing is that is the goal, right? Is to not just offer this on onesie twosies to individuals, but offer it to a plan and work with those people to make them healthier, which is really brass tacks is the only way we get out of this mess in the United States is we have to make the general population healthy. That's it.
I could not agree more with those statements.
I know. Yes. I'm preaching to the choir here, obviously.
Yes. Yes. And seeing that change in community is very uplifting and it's effective because your habits are like the people you're around most of the time. And so when you see your coworkers changing and feeling better, and then you start adapting it, and pretty soon you see the healthier culture of the organization. And I think that's one of our favorite parts of working with companies at Root.
Yeah, and I don't think this has to be like this insane additive cost. I think it really just is an investment in the future of the population. And so for nominal, from what I understand, nominal costs, there's very likely material savings on the back end if you're willing to invest in people today. And then what else do you get out of it? Happier employers, more productive employees, they stay longer. They tell their friends, hey, you need to come work here because they're offering this cool benefit, recruitment and retention, all that stuff. There's just so many benefits to it. And I wish more employers would invest in this type of thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Spencer. So I've seen a lot of interesting things on your LinkedIn, even some new clips that appear to be movie shorts. And not sure if you're getting into acting, but you might have a career there.
Maybe. We'll see. I've told you jokingly, I have a failed career there. One thing you probably don't know is I studied on-camera acting for 5 years back in my 20s. I was always interested in that and learning how actors do what they do. And so I polished off those skills some 15 years later, making short skits about characters. Tom Broker, I think the one you're alluding to, which is just like an amalgamation of all the bad practices of insurance brokers over what I've seen over my career, and just having fun with it, using satire, hopefully to prove a point.
Yes. So what's next for you and with Self-Funded with Spencer podcast?
What's next? The short answer is to continue to do what we do. I've been fortunate that we have a pipeline of people booked all the way through December of this year, and we have enough episodes with that to release to like April of next year. So I've been fortunate that gotten guests, right? So I think there's now become an understanding that an expectation that we continue the show and continue to have guests on like you. But if I had to speak out loud of my crystal ball, I think what I would love to do next is have my own studio, really have a dedicated space, continue to prove that we're going to invest in the show and make it as professional as possible so that we attract as many people to want to listen to it as well. But this is a long-term thing. You don't just have a popular podcast overnight. It takes work and effort and commitment. And I would say we're going to continue to be committed to the cause.
For sure. And everything that I experienced was so professional as it is already. And so I'm excited for you and for what's next. Where can listeners find your podcast and learn more about your work?
So a couple places. We certainly have a YouTube channel. So you mentioned the name of my show on the onset, Self-Funded with Spencer. If you just search that on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, we do shoot on video as well. So if people would like to watch it, they're available to watch it on any of those platforms outside of Apple. Or if they just like to listen passively while they work out, they can do that too. And then if somebody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I spent a lot of time and effort and money and stuff to try to invest and build a profile there. And so if you just search Spencer Smith, and I have the acronym CSFS behind my name for Certified Self-Funded Specialist. And so I'd love to connect. And if people have questions, happy to answer.
Well, thanks so much for joining us here, Spencer. Thanks for listening to Get to the Root. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who's ready to rethink healthcare. You can learn more about Root Functional Medicine and our work with employers at rootfunctionalmedicine.com. We'll see you next time, where we'll keep challenging the status quo and getting to the root of what really drives better health.